The U.S. election is coming fast, and Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are neck and neck. Today's national polling average from the New York Times has Harris at 48% and Trump also at 48%. That's pretty close. I'm no math expert. But with Election Day so close, time is running out for one of them to pull ahead. And both Harris and Trump are taking a break from their battleground blitz to campaign in Texas today, where they're appealing to voters, but also taking shots at each other.
The President of the United States should be someone who elevates discourse and talks about the best of who we are and invests in the best of who we are. Not someone like Donald Trump who's constantly demeaning and belittling who the American people are. America deserves better.
Kamala, you know, I never use the word Harris because nobody knows who I'm talking about. When I say Harris, they say, who the hell is Harris? It's true. If I said VP Harris, nobody knows who it is. Can you believe she's a VP?
Kadia Goba is a politics reporter with Semafor, and she's back on the show tonight. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, this is neck and neck based on every piece of data. So what do we expect to break this? I mean, there can't be a tie in the well, I suppose there could be in the Electoral College, but what do you think accounts for why it is so tight and what it's going to take to break it open in the days that are left?
Sure. So the last election was fairly tight. Strategists have always said that this was going to be extremely tight. I think it's down to strategy right now, how Democrats, Kamala Harris's campaign, how they're going to places like Texas. She's not going to win any electoral votes there, but she's probably going to help the Senate, the person running for Senate there. But also going to these, paying attention to these Republican districts throughout the country. That's been a big strategy of theirs, where they're tuning in or trying to solicit, you know, Republicans who are no longer interested or don't want to support the party, and they want an excuse to support Kamala Harris. So I think it's going to be down to that. Also keying in on those rural votes as well.
Okay, just talk a little bit more about Texas, because, I mean, Trump is probably going to win Texas in the Electoral College. Kamala Harris is probably going to lose Texas in the Electoral College. But that's about taking out Ted Cruz, right? Is that the way I'm reading this? Because he's apparently in a pretty tight Senate race. And, you know, I guess there's fundraising and Beyonce in Texas. But can she really afford to, like, focus on down ballot stuff at this stage in the race, do you think?
Yeah, it was an interesting move, but the only calculus has to be about pulling out some votes for that Democrat who is surprisingly running extremely close to Ted Cruz. So I'm not sure if it's going to help, but I thought it was very interesting, especially in terms of star power, where we thought, you know, Beyonce would come out earlier in the campaign, but she made that leap. I can only imagine that they're trying to also, you know, kind of cater to some of those surrounding states as well, right, that you know, or just the effort. I'm assuming it's unclear why she went there, but I can only imagine it's to help out in that Senate race.
Well, I mean, let's face it, her on stage with Beyonce with a big crowd is going to go on TikTok, it's going to go on Instagram, it's going on all of those places. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is going on a podcast with Joe Rogan. So it shows you, you know, Beyonce, you know, aiming at women, Rogan aiming at young white guys. I mean, what's the play here for Trump, do you think?
So, but I gotta say, both of them have been chasing men voters. She's also, she's slated to go on Joe Rogan as well. This has been particular for Black and Hispanic men voters as well. So I think both of them are chasing that. I think in general, if there is anything, I think the Beyonce call is just for anyone who comes from a person of color who has any interest. I think that kind of star power will be moving for some people who might be undecided. I know there's that word again, undecided. Who's undecided in this election? It's hard to tell. But I have to say, when I'm hearing things, you know, from Black voters just the other day questioning Kamala Harris's identity, I think this is what she's trying to address.
That's an interesting point because Trump has certainly made that an issue, and certainly social media is driving a lot of that too. But when you look at a 48-48 race like we have right now, motivation becomes a big factor in terms of ground game and get out the vote efforts, and then also trying to take the soft supporters of one side and drive them to stay home. And John Kelly and these other Republicans who have now signed a letter backing up his concerns about Trump, calling him a fascist, talking about his admiration for Hitler. This is shocking stuff that ends a candidate most times, but never with Donald Trump. Is that having any resonance, Kadia, as we get closer and closer to November 5th?
I think that was specifically targeted to those disaffected Republican voters I was talking about earlier. These are, some of these people have a military background. If they're questioning at all their allegiance to the Republican Party, you assume that is something that will possibly move those voters over to Kamala Harris. But to your point, the whole Beyonce thing, making people get out to vote, that's part of that, right? Just motivating more people to actually get out. I mean, think about Black voters, Hispanic voters in Florida who are reeling from disaster. What is their incentive to get out? I'd say that would be one.
Well, and you're seeing that in the Barack Obama appearance in Georgia last night. It wasn't about persuasion. It was about motivation. Right? I understand why you're frustrated about costs, and I know why you would want to shake things up, but shaking it up for Trump is not going to help you. So, look, we're, 10, 11 days? November 5th is coming fast. There's only one more week. Where do you expect to see them? I can't imagine Texas is going to get a lot more stops. I mean, does Kamala Harris just go Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Trump hits the Sun Belts and Michigan, or where does he go?
Yeah, I think it's about turning out those last-minute voters or undecided voters. Again, trying to flip for Kamala Harris, trying to flip those disaffected Republicans, and for Donald Trump, trying to really bring out his base, in particular men who might be on the fence. And I think this is going to be a strategy between both of them, visiting those Sun Belts, the Midwestern states, but also doing a lot of radio and a lot of TV that caters to specific groups, or that's targeting very specific groups. It's
amazing. Every single swing state, the polling averages will tell you it's 1 point. I think Arizona is 2 points, and that's like the biggest lead they've seen in forever. So it really is going to come down to the wire. Kadia Goba, we're going to see you in person when we get to Washington, D.C., but it's great to have you on. Thanks for being here. Kadia Goba, politics reporter with Semafor.